Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot. Oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girls. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only Supernatural Girls.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girls. I am your host, Patricia Baker, and I'm here with my incredible co-host, all the way from Tucson, Miss PK. How are you tonight?
Excellent. It's 75 here. Actually, it's 68. I lied a little bit.
Okay.
But 68 is wonderful.
It is. It is indeed. We got above freezing. So,
oh, honey, I'm sorry. You want me to send you some more mukluks for the wrap around?
This is, I think, the first time I don't have scarf and gloves and everything else on for the show.
Well, I was a little leery. I was going to ask, did we get a heater in the area to build up few sticks and whatever?
The wind stopped howling and the temperature went up, so I'm good.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad to hear that because I was worried about you.
Well, thank you.
I wasn't about to share my space, but I know. Could come on down. But you know what? We've got a new month going on, and it's
it's a good month.
Yes, ma'am. It is a great month. It's all about our sensitive side and wanting to use those creative juices that we all have that we're kind of putting aside, have been putting aside. And a lot of optimism now because 3 is creativity. It's about communications of all forms. And it's about using those creative juices that we have for our dreams and fantasies that we've thought about. So it's time to enjoy being more social.
Good.
Definitely more optimistic about things. And that's definitely better than being pessimistic. But there's a lot of good stuff going. Your lucky numbers will also reveal how you're going to tend to perceive your environment. So take a look at what you consider your lucky numbers. Use them. Every day is a different number. The month itself universally is a 3. So whatever your day is added to that 3, that will tell you what your personal side is. So it gives you a little bit to take a chance at it. So enjoy the social. There's a lot of optimism going on. And getting together, and don't be afraid to be creative. I don't care if you decide you want to put a lollipop in your head as opposed to a barrette. Whatever it is, it's going to be uplifting. It's going to make you feel good, and that's really what it's all about.
That sounds great.
Pay attention to your lucky numbers too this month.
Okay. How do we find our lucky numbers? Can we find those on your website?
If you go to my website, I've posted everything for the month.
Okay.
There's all the goodies that go with it. But the most important part is your lucky number is considered numbers that you feel good with and comfortable. I don't care what anybody says. I think our birthday is always a lucky number for us personally. Okay. And 3s are always lucky because they're creative and they have a lot to go with it. We're in the 3 month. So there's going to be a lot of communications, but how do I say, be tactful about what you say because it kind of pops out when we least expect it. Our truth comes out. Oh, that's a beautiful dress you have. Too bad it's not on somebody else. You know, those kind of things you got to be careful.
You don't want to open your mouth and insert your foot, right? Okay.
Down on the floor and your shoes on. But there's just going to be a lot of things that are going to take place at this point in time. So there's going to be a lot of changes in the weather, and we're already seeing that coast to coast. It doesn't matter where you look. Nothing's normal. But don't take any shortcuts. Follow through with whatever you've got going on. And you're going to find out throat, lungs are going to be the weak link this month for everybody because it's a 3. 3 deals with communications. So that's why it's easy to say, oh, you really look good today. Too bad somebody else isn't wearing it. You know, you have to be cautious. But it's going to be a great month because there's a luck factor that goes with it.
Oh, I love it.
That's
Well,
what I
you've
keep going.
brought such good news. You are the bearer of good tidings. Thank you.
Oh,
We all
thank
need that. And yeah, I mean, remember what Jeff Harmon told us when he was here with us a few
Right.
months ago?
Mhm.
He just said it was going to be a lot of great changes, foundational ones. And we're not going to recognize the country at the end of the year, but it's all going to be great. So March
Some of
sounds like the beginning of
things-
it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some of the
Excited.
things that we're going to be looking at. Don't assume right off the bat that it's negative. Instead, the scale of balance, think of it, you're living your life right now in a teeter-totter. Stay to the middle of the teeter-totter.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt that way.
That's right. You can watch from the center. Why not?
Right.
So tonight we have a fabulous guest.
Yes, we do.
Always have the best guests. You know that we do.
Mhm.
And CJ Llewellyn is with us. She's been on the show previously. I was looking back. She was with us like a couple of years ago. And now here she is again with a great new book that's going to drop soon. It's called Chakras, Vegas, Nerve,
Right.
and Your
It is
Soul.
good.
It is, and it's everybody should get this book because it is the vagus nerve. We're going to hear all about this and how important it is. We already know somewhat about the chakras and the soul, I hope, but how the vagus nerve fits into all of it is going to be a fascinating discussion tonight with CJ. So let me tell everybody a little bit about her. She's got a lot to talk about. Just about her on her bio, but I'm not going to go into great detail because I just want to hear from her directly. But she's a trauma specialist. She is a trauma therapist, and she has a tremendous amount of training in many, many disciplines in this whole area. And she's also an intuitive and a Reiki master and the author of many other books. So I know I'm cutting her bio short, but everybody, she's so great. I just want you to hear from her directly. And here she is. CJ, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. I'm welcoming myself here. Yes. The last time we were on together, I didn't get to actually see you guys. So this is nice. You were doing your more radio work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so it's nice and calming for me to see your faces. And I'll tell you why in a minute when it comes to the vagus nerve. So
okay. Well, we want to get to that. The vagus nerve is something a lot of people are talking about and beginning to understand the importance of.
Mhm.
And I love contraptions. My husband calls me the queen of contraptions. I am. And I'm always looking into new contraptions to use for the vagus nerve. So I've learned about this stuff from long ago when the first contraptions came out and actually worked. So I know they've improved, and I'm sure you have lots to say about how we can help ourselves with that without batteries and electricity and all kinds of other stuff. But anyways, tell us how you got involved in this fascinating topic.
Well, I'm for years I have been a trauma therapist, and I am grounded in many body-mind modalities. I try not to get too clinical here, but but prior to that, I was doing a lot of energy work, intuitive work, sort of. Kind of went hand in hand. I think a lot of intuitives are also drawn to the counseling world and vice versa.
Sure.
But so through these body-mind modalities of EMDR and internal family systems and tapping, energy psychology, we're attuning to how our clients are processing out trauma, the somatic work, the listening to your body. I'll break that down as to how the vagus nerve holds on here in a minute to our memories. I call it another brain. It holds on to memories differently than our brain does. But as I was processing through with clients, and I would have them check in with their bodies. Where was the activation? Where are the messages coming? I also, by the way, am trained in polyvagal theory, and I'll break that down again here in a minute too. I'm listening through polyvagal lens of how our vagus nerve is reading the room, is holding on to information, is communicating information, how we can tap into that. And I kept thinking, oh my gosh, these components of what a client is sharing are lining up with the vagus nerve And then I could see the 7 main chakras, the communication coming from their 7 main chakras. And I did this for years and I never thought anything about it. I was just listening and I was utilizing, and I could see how some of the chakras were aligning with early childhood experiences that we don't hold in our brain explicitly, but we feel in our body implicitly. And all of a sudden I realized, when was that? When we were back on, I think 2021 or 22, I realized I wrote a book about this. So my first book, Chakras and the Vagus Nerve, came out then. And that's when we were talking. And this time I got to really drop down into the aspects of our soul in regards to just how we engage in our world. I mean, this is our armor, this is our vehicle. But our soul, you guys know this, chooses that. Well, I say chooses this body based on my experiences with the Newton Institute. It talks about life between life, but they say our body chooses. Our soul chooses this body. It chooses the experiences we're having. And that was also sort of in my mind as I would work with clients, processing out their trauma in their bodies. And our souls have so much interplay going on with our bodies. But when we have trauma stored in our bodies, because our vagus nerve, consider it the wiring, right? When our wiring starts picking up information and storing it to send signals of safety and engagement in the world, it's going to sometimes override the desire of our souls because our body's trying to keep us safe.
Exactly. Now, with the vagus nerve, are you also then saying that that's a place where pre-verbal memories get stored?
Yes. So bringing polyvagal theory into the conversation, which is, again, one of the things I've been trained in for years and reading about and studying for years. Polyvagal theory was developed by Dr. Stephen Porges, and it has evolved into, this is one of the reasons, the main reason a lot of people are hearing about the vagus nerve these days. He saw the vagus nerve differently. He saw the vagus nerve not just as our largest autonomic branch of our nervous system that keeps the heart pumping, the lungs breathing, the digestion going, but he saw this in regards to how the vagus nerve has 3 branches that help us register safety, help us store patterns of safety in our body. Of course, childhood patterns play a lot of that as well, but also how it helps us engage in the world. So just breaking down quickly the 3 branches, the 3 aspects of the vagus nerve. We probably grew up with sympathetic, parasympathetic, right? The 1 and the 2, it's like a switch that the medical community would use. There's really a little bit more complexity to those 2 branches. So we have, if you think of the branches only as, you don't have to take a biology class on this, one that brings us to safety. I put my hands right over my heart chakra, by the way. Yeah. So one that brings us to safety, that's why I was saying I'm enjoying seeing your faces now, because seeing your faces is bringing me to more safety because I can see your expressions. I can see your interest. This creates a sense of safety within my body right now as we have this community developing, as this conversation is going. The next one is mobility, and that comes from the sympathetic branch. In trauma conversation, we talk about that as the fight or flight, but mobility is play. Mobility is stretching. Mobility is getting out and exercising as well. And then there's immobility, and that is a dorsal vagal branch. That is the oldest of our circuitry. And that is the one that we think when we think of freeze. We talk fight, flight, or freeze. Mm. Freeze is that component when the dorsal vagal starts basically shutting down the system to conserve energy. So I just had this conversation yesterday with a friend who's he had an accident and his daughter was with him. And after that accident happened, the other people in the room didn't move. She ran right to him. Oh. And we were talking about how that was a nervous system response. There was no character flaws in any of that. Her nervous system ran to the problem, to the issue, to what needed to be handled at hand.
Is that unusual?
Nope. It happens every day with us. It happens every day. The others went dorsal. I call it dorsal, the others froze. And it was only their nervous system that did that. It wasn't not well intended. It was our nervous systems that they play a role in how we engage in our life every minute of the day. And it's constantly flowing. It's constantly shifting. It was, getting on the show, get a little sympathetic, making sure all my electronics are working, and we're having storms here. I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope it doesn't shut out, my communication with you. But then as I started to talk to you, started to see your faces, I feel myself going more into that safety branch. It's safety complex of ventral vagal. So
Right.
it shifts. It shifts constantly.
How interesting. So what happens then when there's trauma? Our understanding is that it keeps you stuck in one mode.
Well, in sort of a simplified way, yes, it does. So let's say there's different ways that we experience trauma throughout our lives. We may grow up neglected. That's a form of trauma. We're not getting the safety cues we need from the people that are supposed to be loving us, keeping us emotionally, psychologically, and physically safe. Or we might have worse things happening to us within childhood. So those affect us developmentally, and those really impact our nervous system throughout our lives. We may have a single car accident. I like bringing that one up because everybody's had one of those, right? What happens in the moment is, think of our nervous system, by the way, communicating with the brain. I like to say that they're sort of competing cousins. They work together, but sometimes they're a little off doing different things. But let's say as a car accident, you then have to drive through, you have a car accident, and then you have to drive through that intersection 3 weeks later. That happened to me. I was sitting in a light, somebody slammed into the back of me. This was like my everyday going to the grocery store light. Then the next time I went to the grocery store, I knew that I have all this information. I know what was going to happen. I got into that intersection and the light turned red. As I slowed down, I did something I've never in my nervous system done before. I started looking in my rearview mirror because we're taught, we don't look behind, we look in front.
Forward, yeah.
And I will still notice once in a while, if I have to stop quickly in traffic, my eyes go to the rearview mirror. And I know what's happening. Because now there's information stored. If you have to stop quickly, if you're sitting at, certain areas, this might happen. It's not a flaw. It's actually the way our system registers events that store in our body, their information that is used later, sometimes very subconsciously. And we've all had those experiences.
Oh, sure. We have. Yes. So as you're taking us on this journey of understanding how the vagus nerve works, and it certainly does affect just about everything, right? It's connected so well within us. So then how do you help people to unravel the trauma response so that we're not stuck in trauma response with similar situations?
So in a therapeutic setting, which is the only way that I would say when someone comes to you and says, I've got all this trauma, that is the environment. You want a licensed therapist that has some modalities and trauma background, because there's, first of all, the component of safety and connection, right? As a therapist, I'm creating sacred space, not just physically, but, verbally, right? Socially, with a client. So that client has to begin to feel safe. So there's a regulation, her or his body is regulating with my nervous system. We start there. But that's where the therapist starts, because at that point, the client doesn't necessarily know that this is what's going on. So we're starting with creating safety so that there's a feeling, there's a sense of safety. And that's it's a magical moment. And it's all being done through the nervous system. So that client starts feeling safe. I start getting some history from them. And I don't necessarily, everybody's different. Some people want to come in and really put it out in the room. Some people are very reluctant. And that has a lot to do with how they're feeling it in their body. So I'm still assessing through all that. And then as we go on, then I start informing them about what's happening in their body. I start talking about the vagus nerve. I help them develop a sense of connection to their body. And not everybody has that.
Right.
You know, when I start telling them that anxiety is not an actual emotion, that just confuses people. But I also think it helps them understand that anxiety is a neurobiological experience.
Yes.
Depending on what the history is, how they're thinking. However, if once they start understanding that, they can start trusting actual emotion a little bit more. So again, depending upon how someone can really drop down and work somatically within themselves, work within their body, is all different. We're all different that way. And then we kind of decide, depending upon how complex the trauma is, if it's one situation like a bad car accident, we will work that out with whatever modalities feel comfortable with them. So
Right.
it's a layered thing, and it for me, I work. It's not like a 6-session process. But sometimes people by the 6th session aren't quite even feeling comfortable with the therapeutic process yet. So it's all a little different. It's complex, and it takes an interweaving of knowledge again, trying not to get too psychobabbly, too clinical,
Right.
but it takes an understanding of how people attached and what they are and how they are in their dynamic with people. And it takes an understanding of a lot of other layers that just get interwoven.
Well, aren't you creating new pathways for people?
Yep.
I mean, that's what it's all about, right?
Mhm.
Is creating a
Mhm.
new pathway so it can
Mhm.
walk in a different way through these things. Because as we all know, trauma in our lives can stop us from many
Yes,
things.
Definitely.
And often, stops us from receiving good things in life.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this work is so important that you're doing to help people. Now, I know you mentioned a Reiki master. So do you do hands-on work with people when you sense that trauma is trapped in a certain part of the body? Does Reiki help to move that through as well?
It does, but I don't do hands-on, and here's why. I love hands-on work. I love energy healing. When I'm in a therapeutic process, what I'm doing is empowering the client to do their own intuitive presence. And that, again, is kind of what I was saying about getting them to understand, attuning to what is going on in their body. To me, in a therapeutic situation like that, I feel that if I did the energy work, they're going to rely on me to help them along. I mean, I'm there helping them along anyway, but we are entering into a so-called contract of a different kind.
Mhm.
But it helps me, right, to see their energy. It helps me to guide them through trusting their own energy. And as you were saying, as we are going along, even in that safe connection, there's new pathways that are starting in their body, new neural pathways that are starting in their body, just by that, what we call co-regulation. And by the way, regulation is something we do for ourselves, right? Regulation is when we take a blanket and sip some tea, or go out and, hug a tree, or lay on the ground. I love doing that. Or, meditate, or there's multiple ways for us to regulate our system and bring it back into safety. But the best way to do that is to be with someone safe. And that could be an animal. Sometimes my 2 cats will climb on top of me, and I'm watching TV at the end of the day, and they're purring away, and I could feel my own nervous system and their nervous system just soften. We're connected, we're safe. And that's an example of co-regulation outside of just with another human.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what do you think of some of these? I don't know if you're familiar with some of the new devices that people can purchase and use on a daily basis, like the Pulsetto is one. I know there's several others. The Pulsetto I've used, and I was very impressed with it because it brought my nervous system down.
So it helped you to engage back into the safety branch, the safety complex of your vagus nerve.
Exactly. So I would just, and the funny part is I could recognize, because I'm starting at a much lower, more grounded, safer, as you would call it, place, how many people are starting up here. And then they just, they're going out the top of their head. They're exploding. Everything's a problem. It becomes a bigger, you know what I'm saying? I know you do. There's no place for people to just calm down. But I noticed it more when I was able to get to that safer place. I'm like, wow, that person is really like kicking off over nothing. But
however, that could be signs of trauma in their system that aren't what I call Hollywood trauma. It's not the flashbacks.
Yeah, certainly.
That the irritation, the irritability, the anxiety could be, yes, absolutely. And that may be harder for them to regulate into more, kind of getting into more of a safety experience in their system.
Yeah, but what it gave me, and I think this is the power of the work you do, is what it gave me is some distance. So normally I would just start engaging with these people. I'm like, oh my God, they're. So before I know it, I'm up here with them. What this gave me was this ability to not engage with them, just kind of reflect on what was happening. It's a very different place of power, which is not power over anybody. It's just power with yourself so that you can see. You don't got to get wrapped up in all of this ancillary stuff, but it is a trauma response, I'm aware. But still, using this, I use it like every day for a while. It was pretty powerful, what I was able to achieve with it.
And I can't speak to the device you're referring to, but what you are referring to in regards to your experience is that you're able to more easily access safety, right? When we can access safety, we have more presence in the room, even when things are disruptive. PK, you were talking about this month, right? And staying neutral. I was like, oh my gosh, that's all about nervous system management, right? Is that there are moments when we can watch something occur. I use some examples of, I work with a lot of people in the medical field, right? An ER doctor who has to stay present to whatever's happening in the room, right? Really scary, triage stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But they're also in their sympathetic branch because they're also very on point. So being able to manage that, being able to breathe into, keeping that sense of connection to what is occurring in the room, that sense of connection to people, even during disruptive times, which is still getting you into that mobility branch, right? That sympathetic branch. That is ultimately what we want to be able to do. We want to be able to have the vagal health, the nerve of the vagus nerve has so much to do about how we can then slide from a hard event, an emotional event, a traumatic event, back into safety. That becomes the flexibility within. It's like our muscles. We stretch our muscles so that they can do all sorts of different things. That is how we can then respond in ways that are helpful and healthy within our nervous system. Because stuff happens.
Oh, definitely.
It's how we can then drop back down into safety.
When my mother was ill before she passed, I was a Reiki master at the time, and I would work with her, and this stuff doesn't do anything. And then all of a sudden you'd see her start to melt down over a period of time. And so I'd go to visit her and she'd say, I think I need some more of that stuff.
That stuff you got in your hands. Actually, it's because you were talking too, what Reiki, yes, we're opening up to the energies, right? We're becoming a channel. But think about how that brings you, right, and your client into safety, ventral vagal.
Very true.
And that becomes within itself, it becomes co-regulation.
It was a gift for me because I went through it with my mother before she passed, and I used it with her. And with my husband, the same thing. And he would say sometimes, this doesn't do much of anything, and I'd be standing behind this chair working on it. He didn't know. He just thought I was standing there watching the TV show he was watching. And all of a sudden he realized one day, he said, "You're doing that stuff on me, aren't you?" Yeah, I am.
And it's through your nervous system the energy is flowing, right? And out your hands, because these hands are chakras. These hands are still plexes. These are nerve endings where the energy is working through. Yeah.
Do you find that when you put your hands together like this, the energy that you feel within yourself can be self-help?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, because right now I'm in this zone where I'm writing, I've got deadlines right now. I'm still working individually with a lot of clients, right? So how I'm working has a little bit more left brain to it, right? Gotta hit the marks. And so the energy is a little different, right? You're using your brain differently, you're using your nervous system differently, you're using your time differently. But yes, when I am able to sit down and just get into ventral, just breathe, by the way, that is, we don't have to do anything fancy. I'll show you a very basic but powerful breath before we leave. Absolutely. I love that feeling. Even as I'm doing it now, and I'm still kind of I'm on the podcast mode, so I'm not, but I can still feel the energy in my hands right now. It's wonderful, right? And we all have it. That's what people don't understand. We all have that.
My granddaughter, one time I was teaching her how about putting her hands together and the energy she could feel. She said, "But I've got something there, but there's nothing there." And she could feel the compression of her hands. And she would look down and she was only about 5 or 6 at the time. And she'd look at me, and it's amazing, all the things available to us.
Yes. And, to me, the chakras are not different than the vagus nerve. The chakras are an extension of the energy of the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve, right, is communicating information based on our own realities, based on our own experiences, and how, we feel them in the world, we experience them. But the chakras extend outward. And both, all the reading, we've done and all the energy work, that they are both receptive, right? They receive as well as extend. That is the energy of the vagus nerve. Stephen Porges even talks about that. The vagus nerve is receptive as well as extending outward. And as a result of that, this goes to me for the soul. This energy that we carry around in us, this higher, wiser self that sometimes, has to work through the trauma that's in our bodies, is trying to get out. It's not as afraid as our bodies become, right? This energy is also what's working through the vagus nerve, and our chakras are an extension of that, right? And because I always say, I don't try to argue any kind of theology on this. We have energy, we come in and we have this energy, and at one point we leave. And we don't have chakras anymore. And our nervous system is nothing more than, just a 3-dimensional way it might react, but it is not reacting with the intelligence we have in our bodies, because we have a soul that is fueling this, that we have this energy in our soul that is, it's just all that you're saying, PK. It's all the energy that we can then also open up to in a larger scale universally and channel that energy outward.
Sometimes it's like walking into a rainforest with this warmth that comes around you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that's our soul. That's our soul. And that's, however we want to call it, the universal life force connecting with our soul. Yeah.
I have a question about blocks in the chakras, because we've heard a lot about that. Well, if this chakra is blocked, you're going to have these experiences and these challenges. But I'm kind of getting a sense from what you're saying that the block has to be addressed at the vagus nerve level.
Yep, thumbs up. Absolutely. Okay. I think this is why I'm getting firmer on this as we go, because I see this from a trauma standpoint,
Yes.
and I know it from an energy standpoint, that when we get, it's not outside in, it's inside out, that what is communicating through our chakras that we are referring to as blockages are messages, perhaps, from the vagus nerve, from early childhood. It sounds so cliche to say early childhood trauma, but just, maybe within the root chakra, people saying, I have a problem, I struggle with connecting to my root chakra. It doesn't mean that there's a problem. It just means that the messages there are asking to be healed. And it's lovely to have that energy work. I'm all about energy work, but to truly have a clearing, to feel like you've got that window finally open and spring air coming through, it occurs through the nervous system. It occurs as we start clearing out, as we utilize these neuro-experiential models. That's what David Grant, who developed brain spotting, calls them. Through that is how we actually get the clearing. And then as a result, the energy coming from our chakras shifts. It's open. It's different. It's different than it was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What is
it's not a problem with the chakras. Brain spotting came from EMDR. Brain spotting is one of the many different modalities that grew out of EMDR. EMDR, by the way, it was developed back in the 90s by Francine Shapiro, when she noticed that when her eyes were going back and forth, she was processing very deep information. And she took that into her clinical setting and developed a modality for it. Noticed, because our eyes back and forth, that's the REM sleep. That is how our eyes are, that's how our biology, our neurobiology is processing the day's events, right? And it's processing on that more symbolic, energetic level. So from EMDR, brain spotting came to be because David Grant was observing how, as he was working with, in this case, he uses in his book a particular example from a client, how that client's eyes locked. And he just intuitively stayed there. And this is a client he'd been working with for a long time and had processed a lot of trauma out. But once that sort of finger was held in place for a long time, and he allowed that client to just have the experience of that there was a lot of other trauma that had been stored in her body that had been eliminated. And what one of the evidentiary examples was a skater, a professional skater who could not do the 3-point, and then the next day she could. So her just neurobiology, something in her brain had stored in a way, and then when it cleared, suddenly she could do this move. I don't know what it's actually called. I'm sorry, David, I can't remember the name of the 3-point turn. Mm-hmm. But she could suddenly do it. And that's such an example of what happens when we are able to use any neuroexperiential model with the containment, right? Because I don't do my own therapy. I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what I'm doing for myself. So with containment, with a therapist that works through these with whatever modalities you're using, and it changes everything.
I'm all for it. I mean, we need help. Because some of these things are deeply buried, they're pre-verbal, if we could reach them on our own, we would, but we don't. Yeah. They're very, very, they need to be excavated. So
that we can have what I refer to in this new book, the soul can lead the way. In IFS, they call it, they refer to it more as the higher self energy. But whatever you want to call it, that higher self can be more leading the way. And as a result, that higher self is that part, that is that aspect of you, I shouldn't say part, but is that energy within you that can sit in the room and watch people who are very worked up and you not get swept up in it because you're staying calmer. Your body is not feeling, your nervous system is not feeling the need to respond. You're able to stay calm. You're able to stay present to you. That is that higher, wiser energy within us. And that's why I see trauma therapy is very spiritual.
It really is. You're so right. And it's so needed in our world today. It's wonderful to have the kind of training that you have to be able to give people a way to talk to themselves differently. I mean, who would have thought that we really need to talk to the vagus nerve about this? You know, I don't know. I just knew that when people talked about,
I think the vagus nerve is smarter than the brain, by the way. But don't let the brain know that, because we love our brains. We love our brains.
Yeah, but I think you're right. There's something there that's very primal. From what you're talking about, and very powerful, that can create, as you mentioned with the skater, such an immediate physical change that had nothing to do with altering his training. It was something released, something started communicating more effectively, and suddenly there he was, able to achieve his goal. So this is wonderful that it's hopeful that we can all learn to listen to the vagus nerve and catch those messages of what it's trying to say. Because I mean, I bring up chakras because I don't know how many times I've heard people say, well, you know, they told me my chakra was blocked, and, you know, and you got to do this meditation and it's got to unblock the chakra. And then I would do the meditation with people and like, this isn't working.
Well, and meditation, if you have trauma in your body, can be a hard place. If you've had medical trauma, you know, a lot of children have medical trauma because they're told to be still while this process is happening. So what looks like a nice, quiet body might, if you've had medical trauma, be really stirred up inside. So you're not into the safety complex. So sometimes meditation is not the first go-to, or it shouldn't be, within offering opportunities to do some of your regulation when you're outside of therapy.
Yes. This is fascinating, CJ. I'm so glad you're here tonight. This is really, really important information.
Thanks.
Yeah, it really.
Yeah, I do it all day long, so it's like in my head all the time. So I'm glad that this is helpful. I'm glad that you're hearing this.
Oh, yeah, it absolutely is. Now, and you were weaving the soul into this big picture, so that can be also a driving force in its own way. What can you tell us about that? What kinds of things have you seen with the vagus nerve and the soul?
So I've had an opportunity. One of my dear friends has been working, and I love to point out that she is a PhD nurse. She got her PhD in nursing back in the day from the University of Chicago. So this is somebody who's very steeped in science, and she's actually one of my Reiki masters. But she started years ago working with the Newton Institute, and Michael Newton did life between life regressions, not just past life regressions, but what do we do in between these lives? So Michael Newton, by the way, had the same degree I had. You know, he came to that as a counselor. So what a lot of that work has shown is that the soul chooses our body. So I think I kind of come from that foundation of being aware of that.
Right.
And when you look at it this way, when our soul, I think it helps us to just not feel so victimized, even when we're having hard lives. Our soul chose this somehow. Our soul said, all right, we're going to go back down. I don't know what we're going to figure out here. I don't know. You know, everybody's a little different, because why we come to this earth is very exclusive to what our soul needs to understand and learn and gain wisdom on. And our soul darn well knows it's coming down into these tiny little carbon bodies. This is my car that I'm choosing. And it's work for the soul to slow it down, to get onto this planet and to manage through this body. And, you know, we'll have all the information when all of us go back to where we came from, and we can really see the bigger picture, right? But having that knowledge and actually having had my own LBL work done has really given me an opportunity to say, oh my gosh. And so here comes the soul into this body. And sometimes the body doesn't work the way the soul wants it to. Sometimes we come in with neurodivergence, right? Or sometimes we come in with other things or challenges, physical challenges. Sometimes we know it, sometimes it happens to us. But along the way, our soul is wanting these experiences. And truly, even though science can break down what happens in the brain, how the nervous system works, where the central and this, you know, where all the nervous, where our central nervous system is and what it does, how is it charged? how does it work? What is that fuel that actually gets things moving? Because it doesn't work when we leave. Mm-hmm. So I think again, like I was working with the chakras along with the vagus nerve in trauma healing and just kind of knowing this. I think I was also kind of knowing this because I have seen, and I feel blessed to have experienced this after I've worked with someone on their trauma, after we've cleared maybe just even a session of trauma for them. They're different. They're calmer. They can access wisdom that might have had a defensive nature to it before. It's like, I always say, it's like having that window open after a cold winter, Patricia, you know, you're in the cold weather right now. God. When that window opens up, it's like, oh my gosh, here comes the spring. And that's when it is a soulful experience. That's when we're feeling that light. PK, you were saying that's when we're feeling like we're walking into the tropical rainforest, where there's just warmth, there's just a stillness, and yet everything's moving, everything's growing, everything has its just components of growth around it, but it's still at the same time.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm. I'll need this. We really do. Now, there are a lot of trauma therapists now in the country.
Yes, thankfully. We're getting our troops on the ground here.
We need them. So
overdue.
How
overdue,
can somebody find a therapist to work with? Is there a central network of them?
It's there can be. You can go to particular websites that are institutions for certain neuro-experiential models. Like you can go to the EMDR website and look for EMDR therapists. I feel I'm trained in internal family systems as well. I haven't brought that into the equation here tonight, but you can go, that is a very somatic work too. So you can go to internal family systems site. You can go to the brain spotting site. I'm just trying to pull things off the top of my head. But what you want when you know something's off, when you're able to say, I can't get past this response. I keep shutting down, or I keep getting overactivated. You need to go to a licensed therapist. Now, those include any licensure that is doing therapy would be, I'm an LPC, like I'm a licensed professional counselor. There's, I hope I don't mess up this licensure. Social workers are LCSW, I believe. You can go to a psychologist. There are different licensures. There's different trainings, but they're all kind of under one umbrella. Mm-hmm. Look for a licensed therapist. Ask somebody who's had some good trauma work who they would recommend as well. Because I know that, you don't know what questions to ask. I say this to my friends all the time. I mean, they have me as a resource, and I'll say the same things to them. But I wouldn't know how to ask for who would be the best brain surgeon in town, or who is the best. What do I ask in regards to? I'm trying to think of how do I go to a mechanic? I need this thing done. I think. How do I go and find the best mechanic? Yeah. So when we get out of our professions and we're trying to seek help through a certain profession, it certainly doesn't hurt to ask people what their experiences were.
When you have, say, a teenager, and they've been through numerous things to get to be a teenager in spite of themselves, what type of a therapist would you look for someone like that?
You would still look for a licensed therapist, but what you would also maybe consider is within the therapy, there are certain focuses. Mine became, I wanted to be a systems. I wanted to become a marriage family therapist. Mm-hmm. I got into it and went, oh my gosh, I so don't want this. For multiple reasons that will not really be discussed here. But what I found myself compelled to is helping people who were struggling. I was working with women, and I was seeing how they were struggling and the levels of abuse and sexual abuse with women. And then I was off to the races. I started pulling in information. So some people do that in regards to teenagers. So then they become adept and trained, and I don't like to use the word specialized. It's been kind of conditioned out of me by my professors to say
I do
specialized.
understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, they have the training. And so while we all start off with a degree, beyond that point, we all develop certain focuses, certain strengths, certain trainings around things. Yeah. So ask somebody if they have, if they know somebody that has been helpful to their own teenager.
That's good advice. Yeah. Good advice. You do want to get with the right therapist.
Well, everybody gets so confused anymore because we put so many titles on things that really don't tell us what it is they actually do.
Is this covered by insurance?
Yes.
Okay, good.
If you are on panels, I mean, it depends on your profession and if the insurance covers your profession.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing. We all think we've got answers until we find out we don't.
Well, isn't that really what life is about? That we can, the more we know, the more we realize we don't know.
Nothing.
It's like, life is a very
exactly.
Exercise in humility.
So where do you work? What town, what city, what state are you in?
I am in the Southeast. I am not taking clients right now because I've got writing and everything else going on, and I have a lot of clients returning these days. So I work. I'm probably see about 15 to 18 people a day. A day? No, I'm not. I'm not that good a shape. A week? No.
But now you have this book. Yes. Which people can get and read and get an in-depth understanding of this whole process, which is wonderful. Now, you have an earlier book, which is called Chakras and the Vagus Nerve. This one is Chakras, the Vagus Nerve, and Your Soul. Yeah. And that one is dropping in April, you said?
Yeah, I think it is April. It's 5th or 8th. I don't know why. Why would I get confused 5 with 8, PK? But it's the first week of April.
Show me the money, guys, about the change.
So this is a great book to get and read and understand a lot about trauma and how all of this works.
And I was also hoping that I could really offer some hope.
Yes.
In this book. This book is about really allowing people the opportunity to feel hopeful.
Yes,
that's important. Right now, there's a lot of uncertainties in the world. It's just, like you said, we're clearing out. What's it, number 9, you said, PK? Yep. So I want this to be a hopeful book. What's that?
Yes. It's ending things we can no longer control.
Right. And that's a little scary.
Oh, God, we're on a ride.
Yeah.
Just buckle up. Well, this is great. This is great, CJ. Thank you so much. Again, I'm getting notes here from Bill that
time to
our
wrap
producer is Bill tonight, everybody. Chanel is on vacation. So anyways, Bill, we are paying attention to this. And again, the name of the book is Chakras, Vagus Nerve, and Your Soul. It is by CJ Llewellyn. You can get this in April. And her previous book is available now. You can get that one and start getting very familiar with this whole topic. And it'll set you free. It really will.
And is there an area of where people could actually physically go to see you?
So my next class is going to be, I'm very excited about this, in May. I would love to push this for anybody that's listening. The Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology is having its annual conference in Phoenix at an amazing resort. They had the same thing last year. And I'm going to do a 6-hour pre-conference workshop, and I'm doing it with a woman that is, I'm glad to call a friend, but she's also been a bit of a mentor for me for years, with Ariel Schwartz, who is a trauma therapist as well. So we're going to be talking about We're going to be incorporating, she's a yoga master. We're going to be incorporating yoga. We're going to be talking about energy work,
I have
trauma
to
work.
wrap this up or Bill's going to.
Oops, sorry, Bill.
But what we need to know is where is it going to be? So that
It's in Phoenix, ACEP. Look at ACEP.
AC.
Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology Conference.
Okay.
Phoenix,
I'm here in
May.
Tucson.
Pardon?
I'm in Tucson.
Oh, please come. Just come say hi. We'll have
I will
breakfast.
definitely.
Have to make that drive. It'll be worth it.
Oh, definitely. Not a doubt in my mind.
Is it at a resort? Is that where it's
Yes, it's at the Wigwam Resort, which is very cool. It's a historic resort, and
Okay,
it's
great.
fun. It's very cool.
Beautiful area
That's
here.
beautiful. Oh my God. That's going to be heaven on earth for everybody. Okay. Well, CJ, again, many thanks for being
you.
with us tonight. It's been
Thank you.
really insightful. Thank you so much. And good luck when your book drops in April. This is very exciting.
Yeah.
And we will be back next week, everybody, with another great show. And until then, we'll see you on the Blue Highway. Good night.